In the wild world of professional wrestling, where half the job is pretending to like people you wouldn't even share a hot dog with backstage, Hacksaw Jim Duggan stood out as a guy who rarely played pretend, unless it involved him waving a 2x4 and yelling, "USA!" in your face. An all-American good guy with the subtlety of a cannonball to the chest, Duggan made a career out of being loud, proud, and perpetually half-dressed. But behind the bushy beard, crossed eyes, and nasal battle cries, he was a man who, like all of us, had his list of absolute no-goes. While Duggan was famously easygoing and a locker room favorite, even he couldn't force himself to enjoy working with everyone. And that's saying something in a business where one of your co-workers might literally bleed on you during a handshake. So today, we peel back the curtain, lace up the boots of truth, and march down the star-spangled ramp of honesty to reveal the 5 wrestlers Hacksaw Jim Duggan reportedly hated working with the most. These aren't just feuds on TV. These were guys who gave Duggan migraines, facepalms, and probably a few 2x4s to the conscience. Expect the punches to be pulled right up until the last syllable. Then they hit you like a surprise super kick from a guy who doesn't know how to throw one. So, let's dive into the hacksaw hammerfest of backstage beef. If Hacksaw Jim Duggan was America's rowdiest Boy Scout, the Iron Chic was the angry foreign exchange student who brought brass knuckles to a pillow fight. Their TV rivalry was iconic. America vs. Iran, 2x4 vs. curled boots, mullet vs. mustache. But off-screen? Oh, things were somehow even messier. Duggan and Chic were famously pulled over together in 1987 with cocaine and marijuana in the car. Yes, the man who waved the American flag was high-fiving the guy who spat on it. The arrest wasn't just a PR disaster, it was the equivalent of finding out Captain America got drunk with Red Skull and crashed the Quinjet into a Taco Bell. Duggan hated how the arrest ruined his babyface image and stalled his momentum in WWF. But more than that, he grew to resent Chic's erratic behavior and complete lack of filter. Chic, in return, has spent the better part of 4 decades calling Duggan things that would get you banned from a church, a bar, and probably a zoo. Their in-ring work together was tolerable at best. Duggan reportedly loathed how sloppy and unpredictable Chic was. It was like wrestling a snake with a drinking problem, Duggan once joked in a shoot interview. Still, they made money together, and their characters clashed in the perfect old-school fashion. But make no mistake, behind the patriotism and pile drivers, Duggan would have rather worked a broomstick, and at least the broomstick wouldn't scream obscenities in broken English between every suplex. Dino Bravo was built like a refrigerator and wrestled like one too. And for Hacksaw, trying to work a good match with him was like trying to salsa dance with a vending machine. Bravo was Vince McMahon's idea of a powerhouse. Thick neck, thick arms, and apparently the thinnest work ethic this side of warrior country. Duggan, who prided himself on high energy and crowd interaction, found Bravo's plodding, robotic style unbearable. According to backstage accounts, Bravo would no-sell basic moves, forget match spots, and generally suck the air out of the arena faster than a blackout. Duggan hated working with Bravo for one reason: he couldn't get a good match out of him. Duggan's whole shtick was the people's fight. Not wrestling classics, but wild, chaotic brawls that looked believable. But when your opponent moves like a fax machine in molasses, there's only so much drama you can pull out of a side headlock. To make matters worse, Bravo often ignored ring psychology like it was a restraining order. Duggan once noted, you'd punch him 5 times, he'd fall, then the next night, you'd punch him 5 times, and he'd stand there like it was a fan trying to high-five him. And remember, this is the same Dino Bravo who allegedly got involved with the Canadian Mafia and was later gunned down while watching hockey. That's not a joke. That's Canada for you, where even mob hits involve sports and politeness. Duggan respected Bravo as a man, but dreaded him as a match. If the match card read Duggan vs. Bravo, Hacksaw knew it was going to be less USA, USA, and more SOS, SOS. In wrestling, you've got guys who hit hard and make it look real. And then you've got guys who hit hard because they've forgotten it's not supposed to be real. Enter Hercules Hernandez, the human meat grinder of the late 80s WWF, and one of the few people who made Hacksaw Jim Duggan feel like he needed actual armor instead of just waving around a 2x4. Duggan reportedly hated working with Hercules because of how stiff and uncooperative he could be. If Duggan threw a punch, Herc would take it like he was being sneezed on. If Duggan asked him to feed into a comeback, Hercules would stand there like a statue trying to remember if it left the oven on. And then he'd hit back like he was trying to win a bar fight that only he knew about. To make things worse, Hercules didn't exactly believe in the concept of light contact. Duggan once joked that Herc had 2 gears, full force and lawsuit pending. Locking up with him was like trying to dance with a jackhammer. One misstep and you're getting dental work. Backstage, Duggan apparently tried to keep it professional, but he made no secret of his frustration. In shoot interviews years later, he mentioned that some guys just didn't get it, that wrestling wasn't just about being jacked, but about telling a story. With Hercules, the only story being told was, "Help, I'm trapped under this man's ego." In the end, Duggan was the ultimate team player. He'd smile, wave the flag, get the crowd fired up, and try to drag a decent match out of even the clunkiest coworkers. But Hercules Hernandez, that was one opponent who left him less "whoo" and more "no!" King Kong Bundy was a legitimate attraction, a super heavyweight heel with a shaved head, blank expression, and the in-ring speed of a parked car. Duggan didn't hate Bundy as a person, but as a co-worker, let's just say he wasn't lining up to tag with him. Bundy was notorious for two things: working stiff and refusing to sell unless your name rhymed with Mogan. Duggan, whose style relied heavily on big punches and crowd pops, found Bundy a nightmare to get heat on. If Hacksaw hit him with a 2x4, Bundy would look mildly annoyed, like someone who just got overcharged for fries. Their chemistry was non-existent. Duggan once described working Bundy as trying to fight a couch, and the couch is winning. He hated the way Bundy would kill crowd energy by simply refusing to move. You could clothesline him 3 times, and he'd still be standing there, wondering if catering had pudding. There were also ego clashes. Duggan liked to fire up the fans. Bundy liked to be the star of the match. The result? A bloated mess of clashing styles where the only thing more gas than Bundy was the audience's patience. It's fitting that Bundy did TV sitcoms later in life, because Duggan considered their matches a joke. Now, Hacksaw's later years saw him working with younger, less experienced talent, and nothing made him want to drop his 2x4 and run for the airport, quite like working with the great Collie. Collie was 7 feet of walking oops. A true giant with the mobility of a vending machine on stilts, Collie was impossible to work with unless you were willing to carry the entire match, and possibly your opponent to the airport afterwards. Duggan reportedly found it painful to work with Collie. Every move felt like a negotiation between physics and faith. Timing? Forget it. Selling? Optional. Movement? Rare. Watching Duggan try to rally against Collie was like watching a dog bark at a glacier. To make matters worse, Collie barely spoke English, didn't understand basic psychology, and once tried to headbutt Duggan with enough force to unring the Liberty Bell. Duggan, ever the pro, tried to make it work, but the frustration showed. "You can't wrestle a statue," he once quipped, "and at least a statue won't step on your foot by accident." There was no heat, no rhythm, no pace. Duggan was trying to tell a story. Collie was trying to figure out where the camera was. It was the wrestling version of community theater, except the only thing dying on stage was dignity. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was no technical marvel. He wasn't Bret Hart with a flag, but he was reliable, beloved, and knew how to get a crowd on its feet. Still, even the most amiable performers have their off-screen enemies, guys who kill your matches, your push, or just your will to live. Whether it was Chic's backstage chaos, Dino Bravo's sleepwalking style, Nails' bruising confusion, Bundy's immovable ego, or Collie's Everest-sized learning curve, Duggan soldiered on. He may have hated working with them, but he never quit. That, more than anything, is why fans still chant when he shows up. And really, that's what makes wrestling special. You don't have to love everyone you work with. You just have to make it look like you do, until the bell rings, the curtain drops, and the 2x4 gets stored for another day. As Duggan himself might say, tough guy? Sure. But some of these guys, they were tough to watch. Thanks for watching.